you a couple of key points. First question, and somebody touched on this in the very beginning. Are you in business or in busyness? The challenge with HR, being at the table, you're so busy doing everything, you don't have time to do what matters most. If you're not in human resources, isn't that what HR stands for? You're so busy doing everything else, there's no human resource development, is there? And most of you didn't come in to do all the other things that happen, but we kind of settle in. So I'm going to help with that a little bit. I also want to look, because I think you can tell what culture looks like. I think you can describe it. It's kind of vague and fuzzy, but all of you kind of know what culture is when you've been in it. You know what's good and what's bad, and you know what it does to behavior. So I'm going to look at a couple of things. And so here's a question for you. To look at your role and where you are right now. Are you a great actor in a terrible play? Or are you a terrible actor in a great play? If you know the answer to that question, and here's the answer to the right answer to the question, because I'm going to give you a little hint of what culture looks like. Culture looks like, a good culture looks like personal responsibility. Right? And what a good culture looks like. Personal responsibility. Where does personal responsibility start? At the top. Where do you learn personal responsibility in your life? Where should you learn it? From your parents. Some of them, not such a good job, right? They kind of missed that mark. Then they come to work for you. You inherit those people whose parents didn't teach them personal responsibility, and somehow you have to turn that around, don't you? Okay? So the problem with, I like some of the things like ping pong tables and all that. The problem is, if somebody never learned personal responsibility, they think they work at a place to play ping pong. And there's no profit in ping pong. With that said, I like all of that stuff. Because it shouldn't be all work and no play. We should have fun together, right? So it's about balance. So those are some of the things that we're going to look at. One of the other things, and I have some pet peeves, because I decided that I wanted to be a multiplier. So it's not just building our business, it's what we do for a business, because I found out I couldn't fix enough companies for all the problems that were going on. So we want to help you with yours. And that's the whole mission of our business. That's the only reason we exist, because I can't go in enough places, and I wanted to be a difference maker. We're going to talk about being a difference maker here in a little bit. So let's look. It starts, first of all, you probably heard this old saying, all organizations are perfectly designed for the results that they're getting. Right? That's the culture. You look at the results, and you go backwards from there. The results come from whatever is going on in the company. So if you want to change the results, what do you got to do? You got to change the structure, don't you? You got to change the design. So it means what you're doing doesn't work. What usually happens when you're not getting results? Depends on the culture. Sometimes heads will roll, right? You make cuts. When I followed behind, I would ask, tell me what changed, what have you already done? Well, the first thing we did, we made cuts. And here's what clients even tell us. Well, we've already cut to the bone. We've cut all non-essential employees. Well, here's a thought. If they're not essential, why the heck did you have them to start with? No wonder you're not profitable. Okay? See, that's kind of CEO thinking, isn't it? But why do we have non-essential people? Where do they come from? Somebody who couldn't do their job, so you hire somebody else to fill in their gaps. Now you're paying 2 people to do the job of 1, and they're each doing half. And pretty soon you got to make cuts, right? So that's just kind of an understanding. Now that's also why when you get that seat at the table, you got to understand that they see those things, and they understand those things, and sometimes who they become comes from life lessons and what they've learned, doesn't it? Just like all of our personal life lessons have made us who we are, that's part of who we are. A lot of CEOs, a lot of executives, if you want to know why they're the way they are, go all the way back to the beginning, look at their life stories and trace that, and that'll tell you who they are. If you do a background check on somebody, you ask some questions about someone, find out what kind of family they came from, and you ask the questions that they keep trying to take away from us and not let us ask. If you find out where they came from, does the past equal the future? No. I mean, you can remember years ago, Tony Robbins used to be on the middle of the night if you couldn't sleep like I can't, and he used to go, the past doesn't equal the future. No, but what does the past equal? The present, right? The past makes you who you are today. If you want a different future, what do you got to do? Change something, right? So that's the important thing. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. But if you do what you've always done, you'll be who you've always been too, right? Okay, so that's an important thing for you to look at. Now, and another pet peeve when we come into a company and we talk about their issues, one of the things they'll say to us, so, you guys sell soft skills. Okay? I don't have a slide for this. You got to write this down. There's nothing soft about soft skills. Okay? There's just soft people. Right? When you look at that. Communication. What's soft about communication? Right? But that falls into those categories, doesn't it? And they'll say, well, tell me how you measure some of your soft skills. I know how to measure your lack of them. Okay? So that's what they ask. All I have to do is show that right now you're in the tank, and I get you out of the tank. And that's how I measure my soft skills, because they're not soft. Okay? So many of you like to have me as your coach. We always give away a free coaching session with me. Nobody wants it. They pass it to the person next to them. Now, since all organizations are perfectly designed for the results that they're getting, you've got to understand organizational structure. Organizations are only made up of two things, made up of systems and people. Okay? So if you look, you got systems and people, you got to understand this. You manage systems and you lead people. How many of you want somebody to manage you? Okay? We all say, could you help me manage my people? Well, the problem is you're over-managing your people. You need to lead your people and manage the systems. Okay? HR provides people management systems, but not management of people. Okay? Makes sense? And hopefully I'll be able to pull some of that together. So you manage systems and lead people. I was a turnaround specialist when I came in. I want you to imagine for a second. You come in, you all get called to a meeting. I had 2 meetings every time. First meeting I had, I called all of the staff together. And they all came in. So imagine you're the team of a company, CEO's fired. You're not sure what's going to happen. Company going to be sold. Here I come. And I show up. What does everyone that comes into the room think is going to happen? People are going to get fired, right? I gave a framed plaque. I had one rule. I said, I don't know what we're going to do yet. I know what we're not going to do, and that's what you've been doing, but I don't know what we're going to do yet. I don't have a plan, but in this room a plan exists, and a strategy exists, and nobody's been listening. So I'm going to listen, but I only have one rule, and here's the rule. If you don't do this, you're fired. Okay? And you had to put that on your desk in your line of sight. You were allowed to see your family pictures, but in one of the eyes, you better be seeing this. And it said, if you don't grow, you go. Okay? Is that a culture? Do you get that, what you say? That what we're doing right now, that's the stagnant culture that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. We're going to look at that. But that's a culture of growth. I call it a development culture. We're going to come back to that. So that's simple. The other meeting that I had, I called the HR person in. And they had all different roles. Sometimes they were safety manager. They had like 30 other things. And that would be the first person. Wouldn't you think turnaround specialists call the CFO in? I don't really want to talk to them. That's the bearer of bad news. They can tell me everything that didn't work and everything we couldn't afford. So I'd say, I want to take a look. I'm going to be evaluating all of our resources. So tell me, what's the state of our human resources? What do we have here? What's the untapped potential? What aren't we getting out of our people that's going to make all the difference in the world? Okay? Is that a seat at the table? That's what they were my part. I'll tell you what, the answer to that question, if you're the HR manager, the way you answered that question determine whether you stayed or were gone. Okay? If you said, well, you know, well, we don't really do that here. Okay? Well, let's find somebody that can. Okay? So that sounds kind of hard-nosed when I say that, but that is the state. Now, what that means is maybe you could, but the old culture swallowed you up. And I don't have a year or two to figure that out. I got to have somebody that's going to be my partner. So when you say you want to be invited to the table, I want to share with you, some of you don't want to be at the table. It's a scary place at that table, because I'm going to ask you to pony up and deliver. That's what I want. I don't know how you're going to do it. That's what you do. You do what you do. Okay, I got enough other things. You are my partner. That's my number one partner for success. Okay, to turn it around. So, and it ties back in, if you don't grow, you